To an outsider, Jack is a typical 13-year-old boy. He does well in school, he hangs out with his friends, he plays lots of sports, he's always on his phone. He manages his type 1 diabetes very well. To those of us close to him, to family and friends, we see all the extras that he does in a day.
The first thing I do when I wake up is I go and test my blood sugar. Then I come downstairs and I'll start making breakfast and say I'll have a bowl of cereal. I'll need to weigh out how many grams are in the cereal and how much milk I'm having to know the exact carbs of what I'm putting in for my meal. During the school day, I have to, if I'm low or if I don't feel right, I have to go all the way to the office from whatever class I'm in to test my sugar. At night, usually my parents will come in and they'll have to test my sugar for me because I'm asleep. And if I'm low or high, they might need to wake me up or do a site change where I'm gonna have to get another shot.
My family's history with diabetes began with my father and my uncle. They were both diagnosed as type 1 diabetics back in the 1950s. My dad was 12, my uncle was 2. It's one thing to grow up with a diabetic for a parent, but when your child is diagnosed, it changes everything.
On the night before Jack was diagnosed, I was up late reading in bed, and I heard Jack get up to use the restroom. And about an hour later, I heard him get up a second time. But it wasn't really until he came in and asked me for a glass of orange juice because he was dying of thirst that it really resonated with me that he might have type 1 diabetes. We went to the pediatrician. I told the nurse that if his urine tested positive for type 1 diabetes, to have the doctor call me aside and speak with me first. And so when the pediatrician came in and told Jack he was going to talk to me alone, that was a hard moment for me. I knew enough to know that his life had just been radically changed.
The hardest part about having diabetes is probably right now for me, it's testing my sugar all the time because sometimes it's hard to remember if you've been doing stuff for a long time, and sometimes I have trouble just getting blood out, and that when that happens it's really painful. Other times, when I wasn't on the pump, the hardest thing probably was just getting shots every time I had to eat something because it just is a really painful process, and then it takes a long time, and so if I was really hungry, I would have to wait another 10-15 minutes before I could even eat my food.
Becky and I are his parents, and we're here to sort of take care of him and help him through everything in life. And so, we're responsible for making sure he's managing his diabetes. Pretty much every time there's a decision that relates to Jack, one of the questions in our heads has to do with diabetes. What's your sugar? Where are you going? How much insulin's in your pump? How many carbs are you going to eat for dinner? So it is a 24/7 job.
When Jack was first diagnosed, we had a ski trip planned the weekend after. And I called the nurse and I said, do you think we should just cancel this trip? I just don't know if we can handle all this. And she said, would you take Jack if he didn't have type 1? Would you take him skiing? Sure, of course we would. She goes, then you'll take him if he has type 1. And that's sort of been our standard of care, and that's served us well. It's given me a heart attack, but it served us well. Jack said once in an essay that he doesn't believe type 1 diabetes should slow anybody down. I thought that was a really mature thing to say for a 13-year-old boy.
In my future, I really want to get all the improvements and upgrades of new technology that's coming out for diabetes, like the pump is working with the continuous glucose monitor, and I think I'm going to get a continuous glucose monitor and try to work with that a little bit. Also, like for sports in college, I think I really want to go to college and not really have to worry about all my sugar that much. So I'm hoping that something can help me with not having to test as often, but like just maintaining my sugar like all day.
If there was a cure for diabetes, I would celebrate by getting Jack a big stack of pancakes with real maple syrup.
If there was a cure for diabetes, I would celebrate by taking him to Jersey Junction and getting him a ton of ice cream, and I wouldn't have to worry about him going high.
My hopes for Jack's future are that he lives a normal life, and you know, that may sound corny or silly, but you know, having type 1 diabetes is not normal, and it does take a lot of maintenance and control, and it is 24/7, and mom and dad aren't always going to be there, and it does impact your life. Pumps, CGMs, testers, artificial pancreas, smart insulins, all these things that they are working on right now, that are out on the market now, or that they're working on right now, help to make his life easier and help him manage his diabetes. Both my father and uncle chose to not manage their diabetes as well as they probably should have, but they didn't have a lot of those resources. And they both died very young, and they both had complications, you know, from long-term complications from this disease. And I don't want to see that for Jack.
Of course, my main dream is a cure. There have been some unbelievable advancements, but we're not there yet. And so for me, I want to be able to tell him someday that it's over and that we did it.